Hello everyone, good day and you are welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to be looking at C programming and the agenda for this tutorial we are going to be looking at the basic concepts of C as well as look at how code is structured in C. Then after learning the basic concepts and the code structure we are going to be applying that in solving sample questions. So now let's get started. So in basic concept, we are simply going to be looking at these basic things in C programming, which include variables and data types, decision statements, control statements, and functions. I'm not going to be going into details looking at each of them one after the other because I believe we have looked at them already. This video is purposely being made for the supplementary examination for those who have problem with C, for them to understand and then be able to solve questions when they get to the examination room. Yeah. So when we talk about variables and data types, let me just give you a brief understanding on those stuffs. So a variable is just a container. Then a data type is the kind of item you put in a container. So in a way, if you are having a container that is full of water, then you say the container is the variable, or the let's say the bottle that you have placed the water in, the bottle is the variable, whilst the water, that is the material in the bottle, is the data type. So that is a variable and a data type. And most of the time you'll be using variables in C programming. You would have to declare a variable and use it in one way or the other. And we'll look at an example whilst writing some example codes. Then we also have decision statements. So decision statements help you to make decisions, and in real life you normally make decisions based on some conditions, right? So let's say you are going to the market and you have two roads that lead to the same market. You, based on a condition, choose one of the roads and you take that road. Maybe the condition you are considering is you would want to visit a friend who is on the first road, so you would take that road because you would want to visit a friend. Someone would also say that the second road is shorter than the first road, so let me take the second road. And that is a condition, so you are making a decision based on a certain condition that you have. Then when we come to control statements, we are going to be looking at things that can be done um, in or things that can be done continuously. Let me use the word continuously. So let's say you want to print out a number from 1 to 100. That can be done continuously from 1 to 100. So you are simply going to be printing the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you just want to use some certain um, code or statement inside C that could help you do that 100 times, right? Because you are printing the number from 1 to 100, and that you could use what we call control statements. And control statements in C are the for loops, they are the while loops, they are the do while loops. I think they are three in number. So we have the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. Before I continue with control statements, I would like to also mention decision statements. The decision statements are the if else statements, as well as what we call the switch. And I don't know if we would be looking at an example here, but probably in other video sessions we'll be looking at some of them and how to be able to use them in your codes. So in a way, control statements allow you to do something continuously, something that is repeated, right? Then looking at functions, I put the asterisk there because I would want to give additional explanation to what a function is, because most of the time and in the examination they will probably ask you to write a function, or there is a task that you would want to perform, and you it will be very good, or it will be easier to use a function to perform that task. Yes, so let's get into what a function can do. So in C programming, there are three things about writing a working function in C. There are three things, and these three things are function declaration, function definition, and function call. So these are the main three things that um, in C programming you use to be writing to write a function, right? You first have to declare the function, you define the function, and you call the function. So let me pick them one after the other and explain what they mean. So when we talk about declaring a function, a C programming language, the compiler that is used for running a C programming language always needs to know ahead that there is a function called sum, or there is a function called um, let me say product, right? Product of sum. So knowing that that function exists, now it will go to what the definition of the function. How is the function defined? So it will check the definition and store it. After that, anytime the function is called anywhere, it can now use that definition and run that definition and produce an output. Okay, so that is what a function is. The compiler needs to know the name of the function, it needs to know how the function has been defined, or in other words, the algorithm that is used to writing the function, or the task the function is performing. After that, you need to call the function to perform the task you wanted it to perform. So that is the function call. That is the last statement. Now, this is a representation of how functions, function declaration, function definition, and function call is made. So in the first pop up, or the first line of code, we have a function which is declared. So anytime there is a function declaration, you would have a return type for the function. You would have the name of the function, as well as some variables that the function will be taking, right? So we call them parameters. Now, secondly, defining the function is you letting or giving the algorithm to which the function is supposed to perform. So you also state the return type, as well as you state the name of the function, and you give it some values or parameters. The parameter could be none, or one, or more than one. Yeah. Then within this particular body of the function, that's where you are going to give the understanding, or the algorithm, or the task that the function is supposed to perform, right? Now the next one is where we are calling the function to perform the particular task in the second one, right? In the body of the function, this is where we call the function to actually do what is in the body of, or in the definition of the function. So let me just explain that simply with a little code. I have this online ID open for us to use. So let me clean these things out, and then I'll let you. So in this particular code, this particular line of code, I would want to declare a function which I call product, and this function is going to be returning an integer. So we'll be just giving it integer values, and then it will find the product of those integers. So let me first write, or let me first declare it. So int product, then the product, I'm going to pass in two values. So the first one, I'll call it int val1, then the second one is int val2. So I'm done declaring the function, right? Now I need to define the function, so I come under this main block, and I this is very similar to the declaration. You just write the same things as in the declaration. So int var1, int var2, but in this case we would have a block of code which will be engulfed by these curly braces. So in this we are going to have the logic, right, that the function is supposed to perform. So I'm going to declare a variable here. Um, I'll call it result. So res or result, let me just make it result. And then in this result I'm going to say var1, which is the value we'll be passing in, times the var2, which is the second value we'll be passing in, right? Then after this I'm going to return the result. And take note, we said this function is going to be returning an integer, so always we should return an integer, and that is what we did here. This result variable we declared is an integer, and that is why we are returning it as the return type of this particular function. Now we need to use this function. So let's say a user is entering two values for you to find the product of those two values. I would want to print this value out for you to see, so I'm going to use a function in C. They call it printf. I'm sure you know that. Then what I'm printing out is an integer, so %d, to show that I'm going to print out an integer there. Then the name of the function product. Then I pass in some two values, so I pass 2 first and I pass 3. So 2 is the int var1 and then 3 is the int var2. So what happens here is that anytime main runs, we call this function, and then this function is defined here. The compiler knows that this function exists and it knows its definition, right? So it comes into the definition, passes these two values. These two values are multiplied, so 2 by 3 gives you 6, and it returns the result, which is 6, and that is what is going to print here. So I'm going to say the product sorry I'm going to say the product of the values are, or the values is. So that is going to be the product. Now let me run this for you to see what is happening. Actually something went wrong and my network went off, so what I'm going to do is okay, I think it came back again. Yes, it's back again, so I'm going to run this again. So let me simply copy this code and then refresh the browser for everything to come back again. Let's give it some few seconds. Okay, it looks like things are not working the way it is. Okay, it's coming now. Okay, so I'm going to paste the code I copied. So what you can see here, we've declared the function, we've defined it, and we've called it inside this printf. Now what is left for us to do is to run this function. So I'm running the function, and this shouldn't take more than some few seconds to run, but it looks like it's taking too many seconds. Okay, there are some errors. I didn't bring the semicolon here to end the code, so I just brought it now. So now as you can see, the product of the values 2 and 3 is 6. So this is just a function, right? You declare the function, you define the function, and you call the function to do what it is supposed to do. Now let's move on to the next thing, which is going to be code structure. How does code get structured in C? So I've just given some 3 ways, or I think here three ways that code is structured in C. We have it by imports, by the main function, and then the other functions. Okay, so let me just use the example that I use for this, for the earlier one, that is the function 1. So what you can see here, these top values here which have hash include to them are called libraries, right? These libraries contain other functions that we can use, and these functions we don't need to write them ourselves because they are written and well tested, so they are working very well. One of those examples of those functions is the printf. This printf allows us to print something onto the console or our terminal, right? And that was what we're using to print our value in our terminal. The product of the values is 6. That's what we use to print that. So those are imports or libraries as it is called in C programming. After that, we have the main function. The main function is like, let's say, the heart of every C programming language, right? What we mean by the main function is that that is where code starts to run from. So any code that you are going to run in reality in a C programming language needs to be run inside what we call the main function, right? So the main function has every code that you would want to run within it. And if you look carefully, this particular function that we declared, the product function, was not placed in the main function because we are using it here now. That is why we called it, right? So mostly other functions that you are going to be using aside the main function, the other functions that are going to be performing some particular tasks will be um, written outside the main function, and they will be called inside the main function to perform that task. Okay, so that is the way code is structured in C. You have the libraries, you have the main function, and then you have other functions that will help you do some particular tasks that you want. Yes, so now we move on. Then okay, so I've just talked about library functions. So the library functions are the printer, the we have many other library functions. Scanf is there. We have other functions which I think when we start solving the questions we'll come across those functions as well. Now one important thing in every programming language is how to store data, right? Data must be stored in a way that it is easily accessible and easily usable. You can easily find a value or you can relate with that data. So mostly we have different kinds of ways that we can store data, but in this session we are simply going to be looking at arrays. How are arrays going to be storing data? That is our focus here, right? Arrays are just data structures, and they are like data structures that store data which are very similar to each other. So they store like integers. So if they are storing integer values, they store integers. If it is float values, they store floats, and if it is any other value, they store it as similar values. And they could store this data in ascending, descending, or a mixed order. And a lot of these ways help us to know how we can interact with an array, right? A lot of ways that we arrange data in an array helps us to know how we can interact with them. And then one thing you should know about arrays is that anytime we have data arranged in them, we can access the data by index. So we can access the data at the first index, the second index, and the third index. And the way the index is represented is that it starts from 0. So if you are accessing the item at the first index, then you are going to access it based on the 0 index notation. So You access the zero index, which means you are accessing the first item in that particular array. Accessing the one index means you are accessing the second item in the array. Let me give you an example that will help you solidify the understanding of an array. So I was searching on Google to know how arrays can be represented in C. So I came across a lot of ways that we can represent arrays actually. So you need to declare an array and then initialize the array. Probably you are working with data, let's say student age, right? You would want to represent the age of all your students in your class. Let's say for my class like this, biomedical engineering, we are about 50 something or 60 something. So you would want to put that age inside an array where you can easily refer the age of someone, right? So you can put the ages of people along with their names that you can easily access. But let's say we are putting it in ascending order, or we can put it in any way we want. So I would like to first declare an array, and this array would be inside my main. So I'm going to have an array of age. So because it is an age, it should be an integer. So ages, let me make it ages. And to specify that this is an array, you put these square brackets in front of it. Then when you do this, you have done what we call declaration of an array. So array declaration. Within the square bracket, you can give it some particular size that the array will have, or size of elements that the array should be having. So I can give it 65, and which means that this array is not going to go beyond the size of 65. So if we have 65 members in our class and we are storing their data, if there is someone else coming in making it 66, that data will be ignored because we only have 65 people, because we've stated it here that the size should be 65, right? We've stated it here that the size should be 65. Now we can choose not to state it. In that case, the size can be changed, right? It's not constant. It becomes let's say it increases based on the kind of data that we put in, right? But let's say we have 3 people, so I say 3. I've declared the array. Now I can put the 3 people's age inside this particular array by, I think, saying that it should be use curly braces to show that we are putting data. So let's say 34, 24, and 14. So that is the data in the array. Now let me print out this data. One of the data, let me print out the first item in that particular array. So print, it is an integer, so I use %d. Then age, I am accessing the one at the 0 index, that is the first item, right? So now I can run this and see what it gives me. Okay, it's giving some errors. Okay, I declared ages and I'm now using age, so that's a naming error. So kindly, I just corrected that. And then okay, I think I don't need this here since I've declared it already. Okay, this is supposed to be printf, and this is how we write code. You don't really know everything from head. You keep writing and keep going through your code until you get better at it, right? So we are just working with an array, yes, and that is what we are doing, and I'm correcting myself based on what the the error messages. Yes. Oosh. I think trying to get this right. So ages with a size of 3. Okay, still saying okay, I'm printing. I was supposed to print ages, not age. Okay, I'm supposed to put a semicolon here. Then I think I should put this square bracket here. I think I'm not getting it. Let me refer to Google quickly. So yes, you declare by this. Then when you are putting an element into it, okay, how do you put an element into it? So after declaring, you can put the element into it based on um, using a for loop. But I don't want to use a for loop. I just want to initialize that. So this should have worked, but let's see. If it is not working, we'll just move on to the next one. Okay, so this not working. So what I'll do is I'll directly um, declare and initialize the value, right? I'll directly declare and initialize the value, and I think that should work. So now what I'm doing here is I'm declaring that ages should contain 3 elements, and then I'm putting the values within. Now I can now print the first element inside ages, right, which is going to be ages index 0. I think this should work now. Yes, so it's working. You can print the last element by saying 2, and I think this should work as well. So 14. Someone may ask, what if we go beyond 2? Let's go beyond and see what happens. Okay, so beyond it there is a value, but that value doesn't contain, or is not inside our ages array. So make sure you don't go beyond the size of an array, and that is not what we are going to be looking at here. Actually, we just want to make sure we understand how arrays are working, and then probably if we are going to be having rating supplementary, we will know how to declare and initialize an array, right? That is what we want to do here, right? Good. So we've just looked at declaring an array and then initializing it. So we've just declared an array with a size of 3 and initialize it with some ages like 34, 24, and 14, right? So that is an array. Now let me move on to the next one, which is going to be, that is what we've just looked at. So we are going to be looking at lab exercises. So the lab exercises, I think I have it here. We have some exercises here. So this is the first one. I'm going to be quick on this because we don't have much time. So we are told to run the code below. We are told to run this code below. So let me just copy this, and then I'm going to paste it in our ID, the online ID that we have. So I'm just going to select all this and paste this in. So that is what we have here. Let me run this and see what we have. Okay, there is an error because this was commented but it wasn't well commented. The comment should be on the same line. Yes, so now if I run this, I see hello world, right? That is the first code that comes out, the first output that comes out. The next thing is ask the user to enter their weight and height using printf. So I could just say from here I can clean this printf here, or I can just leave it and come down and say let me move this, let me arrange this well. Okay, so I can say printf, we are told to print something now, so um, enter your, is it weight, let me check again and see, enter your weight and height. So your weight and height, right? So that is what we are asking the user to enter. So let's run this and see if it is working. So enter your weight and height. So that is it. It's asking the user to enter their weight and height. And next they are asking us that the next question says that receive their weight and height in different variables using scanf. Remember to use appropriate data types and comment your code. So because we are going to be receiving the weight and height, we need to use variables for this particular uh, things. We need to use variables for them, right? So I'm going to be declaring some variables. I think I'll be declaring it here just above the printf here. So this variable actually is weight and height, right? And weight and height are values that vary. So using an integer wouldn't be the best data type to choose for a weight or a height. So I'm going to use a float instead. So float weight, and I'm going to initialize this to, okay, I'm supposed not to initialize it. So float weight and then float. So I'm just declaring the variables float height like so. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is to use scanf to take the values and put them inside these variables, right? So the first scanf is going to be percent the percent d, I think it should be percent d. Then we put in an ampersand and then write the name of the variable we want to put the this thing in. Then the next one will be percent d, sorry, this should be percent f because we are looking at a float value. Now the next one will be percent f as well, then comma ampersand height. Actually I'm not having these things off my head, I've learned them a long time, so I just revise them and then using them to for this particular video. So you can revise these things as quick as possible. Just understand how they are working. You don't need to know how exactly it's working. How you can write it and make it work is what matters now. Yeah, so now it is working. We can specify so let's say the weight is 12.5. The next value is let's say 10.03. So the first one was the weight, the second one was the height, and that ended the code. I'm going to refactor this code so that it becomes better. Instead of saying enter weight and height, I'm going to say enter weight first, then the next one I'm going to say enter height so that it looks better. So something like this. So let me rerun this and you will see what I mean by it's looking better. So you can see enter weight, I can enter the weight I want, then enter height. I'm supposed to change this to height, so let me quickly make that changes. So let me stop that and make that changes. So enter height, so I'm rerunning this. So enter weight is 120.4, height is 12.5, and that is it. So we've just done what the access to do. So it's just an instruction that we are following through. Then the next thing is display the values the user entered using puts, right? We are supposed to display the value the user entered using puts. I don't know how puts work, but I think puts is supposed to take in the value that we want to print out. So let's see, it's just going to be working like printf, but it has a specific work to print out something, right? Only printing out something. So let's see how that works. Puts, and then I pass in weight. So let me see, your weight is let's see, weight. Let's pray this works. Let me run this and see. Let me put percentage f here and see. Puts. Okay, let me ignore the string and then use only weight and see. Wow. Incompatible type for argument 1 of puts. Okay, puts is supposed to take an integer. Okay, let me concatenate this. Let me change this to an integer and see what. Okay, please, the puts, I probably may have to go and look at this again, because it's a very, it's a function inside, but if you don't know how to use that function, you probably may not be able to do anything with this. Yes, so and the next thing is we have to calculate the BMI and display the result to the user. I don't remember the formula for the BMI, but let's say the formula was supposed to be like weight over height. Then we can declare a particular variable that can help us with this. So we can say float BMI, which is going to be equal to the weight slash the height, and this is how we do divided by. So we can now print this out using printf, and now we can print that out, percentage d or percentage f rather, then we put BMI as the variable that we created to store our BMI. Now if I run this, it should take a value, so 120.00, then 12.00. This should be giving us, I think, 10. So I'm just giving it a value that I can expect an appropriate output. So as you can see, it gave me exactly 10, which means our BMI is working, right? And that is it. We've just finished writing a code. Get car, put car. I simply have to go and look at those things again, because I don't remember how they work. Yes, that is it. I don't remember how they work. I can't remember everything. I probably have to refer and come back to this video again to handle this again. So the next thing says display the text below in the same format using printf. You need some escape sequences. So escape sequences, like tab and those stuff. So let's try this, the final one, and see. I'm going to clear my everything here. I'm going to clear, or I'm going to comment them out. So let me comment everything out. So what I'm going to do now is that This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use printf. So that's what they said we should use. So printf, and then we are going to be printing. If we go to our question, first of all we print examples of languages. So that's the first thing we are going to be printing. Then the next thing we are going to be printing out, this is just a printf example. We really are not doing anything interesting, so that is just a printf example. We are going to print this. So there is a tab here, and then we are going to print that. So I'm going to do /t, then I'm going to print this. Then the next one is the same printf /t. Then let me copy what I have here, copy this and paste it here. Then the last statement is printf, which is going to be what other language do you know. I copy this and I paste it here. What other language do you know? So I think this should be all now, and when I run this, you should expect a similar output. Okay, I think I messed up something. I should put next line here, next line for this as well, next line for this, and next line for this, so that they will all be printing it on the next line. So as you can see, very similar to what we wanted to print out. So that is this question, and I think we are done with this question. The puts and the get car and other stuffs, I told you we'll be looking at that and in a later video. Yeah, so I think in the next video, actually we're supposed to solve 2 lab exercise questions. That was the first one that we solved, but it looks like the time is far gone and the video seems to be getting longer, so we'll end it here and we'll look at the next question or the next lab exercise in the next tutorial. Thank you very much for being around, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. If you have any concerns, let us know and we'll attend to you shortly.